Thank you for watching Community Update. Before we proceed, we wish to clarify that the opinions expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the channel or our organization. It is our mandate to facilitate the availability of information while respecting diverse perspectives.
Indigenous identity is often intertwined with the struggle for recognition, self-determination, and the preservation of cultural heritage. Many Indigenous communities across North America, including the Black communities, continue to assert their identities through cultural revitalization efforts, activism, legal battles for land rights, and sovereignty. My guest today is an advocate for Black history. Welcome to the show, Mr. Kurtis Brooks.
Well, Ellen.
How are you today?
I'm well. I'm doing better than can usually be expected. So
Okay.
It's a beautiful day outside and beautiful in here. It's great.
Absolutely. So you're back home,
Yeah.
back in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
How's your first night in? I know you had an event yesterday, right?
Yes, we did. So our event went well. I was pleasantly surprised. It's nice to be so warmly received. And the other thing about it is like being here in the Maritimes is always everybody's so kind and inviting, and it's just like it's like nowhere else in the country.
That's the Nova Scotia way.
Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Exactly. Very hospitable people, right?
Mm.
So before we jump into the questions that I have to get to know your work more, tell us a little bit about who Kurtis Brooks is.
Kurtis Brooks is a father. Kurtis Brooks is a thinker. He's a guy who just kind of gets obsessed over certain concepts, like the one that we're currently talking about. It's like I want to be a person who I have a philosophy for life, which is to just kind of walk through life and trying to leave every situation and every person better than
you met them
when I first met them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I kind of follow that same pursuit as well.
Yeah.
To leave an impact or an imprint on people.
Just better off. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want ever have anybody feel like they lost anything, but rather they gained.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nice. So what is your tie to Nova Scotia? Because I'm sure your family's from here.
Yeah, so my family's from East Preston region forever. I mean, I think most people in this region would know our last name, and especially if you're in Preston, because Brooks Road is kind of like the main road there. So yeah, so it's kind of hard to miss it.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, welcome home. Welcome to the HRM. So let's dive into why you're here, because I don't want to waste time, because I think the work that you're doing and the issues around what you're doing in terms of identity and finding your roots and being strong in that pursuit is great work, and it's piqued my interest enough because I'm thinking I need to know more about this. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about your journey from the founding of the Black Phoenix community to your current endeavors in anthropology and Indigenous law?
Absolutely. So it's so with regards to the Black Phoenix community, that was my it's kind of my first organization, which was a kind of self-created project where basically we wanted to bring together the Native population and the Black population to kind of work on the different scars, the historical scars, and finding historical motivation through that.
Yes.
So historical motivation for me, as far as I'm concerned, is like oftentimes there's a lot of people left out of history. Like if we learn about history from the school system, you're going to learn about John A. Macdonald, you're going to learn about Wilfrid Laurier, you're going to learn about all these different characters, right? But very few of them look like us, and very few of them, and then when they do mention us, they're going to leave out any of the great characters. And so this is what we focused on with these things, but also what our current situations are and how to build from the historically created issues that went along with that. And so I did that for primarily while in Montreal and for roughly 5 years before converting it into what we call the King's Court dinner and discussion.
Nice.
So yeah, it's and it always worked very well, and I ended up doing that for a total of 11 years there.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
You've been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah, oh yeah, and you know it's beautiful because you get the opportunity to learn. So the way we focused on running that was that the idea is that, okay, look, we all come together.
Yep.
Everybody gets a project in the class, and everybody teaches. So it's not just me lecturing, but rather I get to learn just as much as I give off.
Absolutely. Nice, nice. So how has your maritime heritage influenced your work and the pursuits or perspective on culture?
So culture in general, well, I think everybody has this all of us melanated people from the East Coast know this very poignant question, which is, where are you from?
Yes.
No, where are you really from?
Oh, yes, that question.
That one.
I had that yesterday.
Yeah, and we get that
Are
all
you
the time.
from
Right?
Nigeria?
Yeah,
I said,
exactly.
No, I'm from Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia. Yeah, exactly. And because of this, but also at the same time, living in Toronto for the vast majority of, or a large portion of my life, you get the other aspect of it, which is everybody's from somewhere else.
Right.
Right. And so, with the combination of those two things, always being asked that question. And I have no problem with that question because I'm very proud of where I'm from. But then there's a question, presumed question, which is like they assume that you're not from Nova Scotia, but rather that your ancestors are from somewhere else. And so you have to end up then understanding if we promote our culture, then that stops being a question, because and you only get the first question, where you're from.
Right.
You don't get the second question, where are you really from? That's nobody asked that of Jamaicans, nobody asked that of
Right.
Chinese, even though the supposed heritage is the same, right? So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good answer.
yeah.
So you've been involved in both community organizing, and political adversary roles.
Absolutely.
How do you see these two areas intersecting in your efforts?
Yeah. Well, politics is it's funny because I liken it to art in a lot of respects, because it's artistic language, right? That's what you approach people with, and this is the thing about art is, that whole concept of artists use lies to tell the truth, and politicians use lies to obscure it. For me though, it's it's still an art form, and as much as I personally, being involved in it for such a long time, I like to peel away the layers of the lies, to see what's,
to get to the truth.
and it's interesting, and
Yeah.
it's incredibly interesting to me. And I think when it comes to culture and that, I rather not have the political tongue, but rather have the layman's tongue, which is an honest tongue, which is all about, being direct. And people often don't like that,
No.
the directness. But if it's true, it's true. And we need to commit to the truth and find our way back to the truth. So
Nice.
hope that answers the question.
It
I
does.
don't know if it
Listen,
does,
all this is great, interesting stuff, because it's kind of new to me to hear
Yeah.
certain aspects of, what you do. So by all means, there's no wrong answer in that. But let me jump into your book for a second.
Mhm.
Your book, We the Lnug, am I saying that correct?
Lnug, yeah.
Lnug, okay. The Truth About Original Blacks in Canada
Yeah.
and our Algonquin family.
Yeah.
It sheds lights on the indigenous history and culture.
Yeah.
What inspired you to write the book, and what do you want your readers to get from it or take away from it?
Well, what inspired me to write it was actually my cousin.
Mm-hmm.
So my area of expertise is in anthropology, and more specifically, African cultures. And the reason I went into that is because of what we learn in the education system about our heritage and whatnot.
Which is minimal or next to nothing.
Yeah, and also less
Incorrect.
than accurate.
Yeah.
so and one of my cousins actually came to me and said, hey, cuz, can you tell me where exactly we came from? Like what country, what boat we came off of, and
Trace
so
it
on.
back.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Where in Africa. To which I said, you know what? That I probably should be able to tell you. I can tell you anything about Africa, but I can't tell you where we specifically came from. So you know what? I will take on that project. I don't have an answer for you right now. I will get back to you on.
Nice.
And that's what
where
the book came out of, because I couldn't find that boat. Right, I kept looking and looking and looking, and I looked at a lot of boats and found very little slaves and found very little migration into, and I kept looking at our heritage and continuously found that we were here.
Nice.
Yeah. So because of that, I started looking more broadly at the history as well. To look for it, to see what I may have missed, right? Am I leaving anything out? Am I mistaken somehow, right? And over again, I found more and more evidence that I wasn't mistaken, but rather that we had always been here. There was no time in the archives or the history that you couldn't find our people. In fact, even to the point of the founding of Nova Scotia, you had 10,000 blacks registered within the first year in 1749, when Cornwallis actually came over. So no, it didn't seem like that there was any point in which we weren't here. And then beyond that, I started looking into it further to the early explorers, and looked into their descriptions of the people that they met here, and their descriptions were of people who look like us. So I started
Which were what descriptions? What were some of the readings?
So they describe our hair as being thick and curly, right? They describe us as having swarthy skin. They describe us as having thick lips. I
like my voluptuous lips.
Absolutely, absolutely, and so did they. But anyway, broad shoulders, good builds, right? Like you see, our men have that physique and all that, and they described us as they likened us to being like Ethiopians.
Okay.
Of the hue of Ethiopians, of the look of Ethiopians, and over and over again, you saw these exact same descriptions, and I have yet to see a description that describes anything else.
Right.
And because of that, I was like, oh, well, this is interesting. But at no point could I trace in my own family lineage to anywhere outside of here in what we like to call Nova Scotia.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
You're a wealth of information. I'm sure you have long conversations with most people.
Very much so.
So I'll stick to my notes here. So tell me about your experience living in diverse communities such as Kenya and the Indigenous preservations, right?
Yeah.
How has that shaped your outlook or perspective on global and local Indigenous issues?
So Kenya. So I wasn't in Kenya as long, but
enough to observe the culture.
Oh no, absolutely, exactly. And it's constantly changing and stuff like that. I what I find interesting about Kenya and Africa in general is just like there's a different relationship that we have. Excuse me, that we here in the Americas have with them, and it's not always the best. It's not always a bad one, but it's one of that I find that we over here tend to disrespect ourselves by not focusing on who and what we are, right? And then also, there's a lot that we share in what happened to us on both continents, but it happened in different ways, and those differences make all the difference in the world to who and what we are, and
how we show up in the world.
Exactly. Well, and how we hold on to our culture.
That's right.
And how we bring it forth, right? And so for us, it's kind of like we lost a lot of that, because of how colonization or invasion happened on this continent. So for us, it's important to focus on different remedies than the ones that they have.
Right.
I empathize and sympathize and love their, helping them through theirs, but we need to focus on developing ours. And
Equally as strong as theirs.
What's that?
To be equally as strong as theirs, right?
Yeah, well, there's certain, we need to focus on bettering ourselves, and definitely make those relations, definitely make those trade relations, definitely make those agreements, social agreements, and all that kind of stuff. Allies, and that's great. That's extremely important. But it's just as important that we get our house in order.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. It's your show.
Before you get, because you said the aspect of the being on reservation now.
Yes.
And that aspect of things has been incredibly telling in how the Canadian government approaches us. The problems that they allow to fester are incredibly insidious. The way that they work, the way that they approach the Indian problem is it shows the methods that they approach. Whereas in Africa, things tend to be a lot more direct, right? They'll tend to be a lot more directly abusive, and it's a show of force. Whereas here it tends to be more of a show of manipulation, right?
That's a nice distinction, actually.
It's an important one because again, the insidiousness of that is that you don't know that your enemy is your enemy. So, enough to say that every individual is an enemy. I don't believe that for a second. What I'm saying is that, but exactly, enemies do exist, and if your enemy approaches you with a smile, then you smile back, and that is our nature.
It is.
And their nature, a good friend of mine, a good Indian friend of mine, he said in his country they have a saying, and I always try to propagate this as much as possible. He said just because you are a vegetarian, don't expect the tiger not to eat you.
Okay, say that one again.
Just because you are a vegetarian, don't expect the tiger not to eat you. And it was sage advice for me, and I take it with me everywhere I go, because this is the problem that we have. We think just because we are good people,
that's somebody, and
we have good intentions.
Yes.
It goes the other way as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And oftentimes it doesn't.
That's nice. So learning your personal growth and learning about all the studies that you have.
Yes.
How has it affected your life personally?
It's very enriching.
Okay.
It's very restorative, very enriching. It's hard for me to describe how much, we were talking about my hair earlier, and yeah, you can keep laughing. It's okay. I like that.
Well,
it's on the personal side of things, it affects every aspect of you, because when you are in touch with your ancestors, okay, when you have traditions that you keep, it gives life and meaning to every act.
Absolutely.
Right? So it gives life to, before my haircut was just a haircut. It's just about looking good and looking cool, whatever, right? But now it is a contract with the divine.
Yeah.
Right? Now it is a statement of love, life, relations. The only people who are allowed to touch my hair are
your barber,
my mother, my sister, my wife, my daughter. Those are the only people who are allowed to touch them now, because of the traditions that I understand now. So there's something of meaning in that where there was no meaning before, where there was just chaos.
Before there was just chaos. I like that. And I think before the show, when we were just talking, we were talking about the awakening of when you learn new information, or you come into truth of however it comes to you, and the resurrection of waking up to that.
Absolutely.
Right? And it just made me think on that, like, when there's a spiritual principle of how dry bones come to life, right? Like you don't know that you're dead to the things until you run into it smack dab in the
Absolutely.
face. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, just to add to that, it's like, our people who are called the people of the dawn, and I recognize that in our character and in our culture, because the dawn is hope. And there's never a time we are people without hope.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Right? I look at that and I go, wow, that makes so much sense to our character and our nature. And it's funny because it's something that Obama said. Those are his words. He's like, that we never go without hope, and it's very characteristic of who we are. We're very naturally happy people. We're very inviting. That's how the invaders were able to come in the first place, right? They came over saying, hey, we need your help. Could you help us out? Right? We're having problems, and we said absolutely. We're very courteous. We're very inviting, and that in itself is an act of hope, because you don't expect negativity to befall you,
right?
but
Exactly.
you expect that something positive is going to come to you.
I see that as a universal love language.
Yeah. It's
right.
It's again, don't expect the tiger not to eat you.
That's gonna stick with me. Share with me some of your memorable moments or experiences or achievements, I should say it that way, that you've been on your journey with, and how it's affected your work that you do.
As in, like just recently, like being here, or in general?
Okay, well, we can do in general, and then we can do recently, since you just had a great experience last evening.
Yeah, like it's been very good because it's been very well received. In fact, very well received, far more than I expected it to.
Yes.
I expected to run into a lot more controversy and a lot more opposition. Instead, I'm getting a lot of elders who are like, "Oh, okay, thanks for filling in the blanks."
Yes.
Which is like, "Oh, okay,
putting
good."
the pieces together.
Yes, and a lot of the research that I've done is just kind of exposed a lot of the historical things that the Canadian government has done, and it's like, and I do not think that the government is involved in these types of things today, because this was the time of war and so on and so forth.
Did you say time of war? Is that what you said?
This was
the time
back in the day was a was a time of war and stuff, but they have residual effects on us today.
Absolutely.
And the way history is taught has allowed us to fill in these, has directed us in a way of understanding ourselves that is not accurate.
It derailed us, right?
Yeah.
This have taken us off the path kind of thing, and trying to find our way back.
I mean, our the main concept of why it is that we look the way that we look and are in the place that we live is, based on the idea that, of the Underground Railroad, which of course is a real event, but it doesn't speak to those who were here before that, right? The ones I spoke about earlier, the ones that, that defended Louisburg in the north. Right? There's so many different populations that go beyond that. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so let's get into the reason why you're here in Halifax. And thank you again for sharing all of your wealth of information. Again, I can sit and talk to you all day. But why are you here in Halifax? What is your touring? You're doing a few events. You're, bringing people into conversation. Yeah. So share some of that, because I do want our audience to know the great work that you're trying to do, and bring people into the knowledge of understanding of who they are.
Yeah. So we have there's a team of us now, and effectively, we've understand that we're all from this community as well, and for us, we've said, okay, well, this is very pertinent information that we should have been educated about in school.
Yes.
We all agree.
Yes,
100%. But we haven't, and as a result of that, it leads to disorganization, both within the general community as a whole, but also on the political level and social level, right? You can't get things effectively done if you don't understand who it is that they should be done for, and the parameters around it. many of us are Indigenous peoples who are acting like just random people, and as a result of that, we end up, you know, the land claim aspect of things, right?
Yes.
A lot of us, you know, the land was already, you know, historically ours to begin with, which is part of the reason why we don't have the deeds for
That's
them.
right, exactly.
Right? And so this leads us to go about things in the wrong way, right? It leads us to it leads a lot of people into fear about, you know, losing their land. It leads into so many different problems. And so for myself, I don't want any of that going on. I don't want that anxiety. I don't want that those issues. I don't want. I want us to be able to organize and to conduct ourselves with self-respect for our heritage and our history and our ancestors, and to conduct ourselves with our culture, which has been lost through this whole process. I think culture is incredibly important, and it allows people to have self-respect. You see cultures come into this land from all over, and they carry their culture with them, which is what allows them to prosper.
Absolutely.
And I truly believe that, you know, people without a culture, they cannot get roots. Both Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey spoke about these concepts, and we have lost that through this process. And we need to, it's time to plant a new seed and restore it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So where are you going to be? So last night you were where exactly?
So last night we were in Hammonds Plains, Hammonds Plains Community Center, and they're kind enough to have us up, and you know, we did a little session over there, just kind of, you know, stirring the pot a little bit. And next on Wednesday we will be at the George Dixon Center.
Okay.
6 o'clock. We'll be stirring it up a little bit more, and hopefully getting a lot more people involved. And
so are these panel discussions like a town hall sessions? How are you?
Yeah, we want to. So it ends up often being a lot of me talking, but I prefer the discussion method, because, you know, it is about the community as a whole, you know, and it's nice because it ends up being me talking a lot, because people are just like, okay, these are
they want to
things.
Hear you.
Exactly. I brought to light a lot of things that had been shrouded for a long time.
Absolutely.
Right. And through this process of writing the book, it's very clear to me, right? As opposed to, you know, for so many of us, for so many years, it's been so obscured by everything. By laws, right, that prevented us from knowing our religion, our culture, and so on.
Yeah.
But for many of people now, they have pieces. They have, you know, fractured pieces of their history, and I've just been able to weave it all together.
Nice.
And so they're interested in hearing the story. I'm interested from hearing from them, because I love to learn.
Absolutely.
I love to learn, and I don't get a chance to do it enough.
Right. And, you know, I think I was sharing with you before the show is that there's a few historians in our family, and they have a wealth of information. And when they start talking, I just sit and listen. Yeah. So I think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Because
it's happening.
Again, right, you're tickling their ears.
Yeah.
You're pulling on heartstrings that they've always wanted someone to kind of peel back, you know, the layers and let them know that there is that information out there.
Yeah.
Because left to our own devices, sometimes we struggle with how to find the information.
Yeah.
Right?
It's funny, you know, we have the saying, you know, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Right.
You know, I'm perfectly comfortable with my 2 ears. In fact, I wish I had another set. Like, give me some more ears, because I love listening. I love taking it in. And that's how I got to the point of understanding this, because I'm constantly taking in the information, taking it in through my eyes, taking it away through my ears, listening to what people say, and you know, this is how culture is made. This is how we grow, because we grow from each other.
And share our story.
Yeah, and for me, I want to be in. I want to be immersed in it as much as possible.
Absolutely. Okay, so if somebody wanted to reach out to you, you're open to that? And how do
Oh,
they?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
You know, and we do have a website. It's lnug.ca. So it's
yes.
lnug.ca. You know, there's a way to reach us on the website itself that has virtually all our information. And that's the primary way to connect with us. There is a link for the email on there, which there's links for all that.
Okay,
kind of stuff
wonderful.
Yeah.
So after Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
what's happening after Wednesday?
So after Wednesday, then we get to the reason for the season, the name of the event, the Amtukadi Walk, which is at 12 o'clock Citadel Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we're walking down to Point Pleasant Park, which is a tradition that we are resurrecting for the first time since 1749 when the invasion happened.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's really the main reason. I'm just happy to be able to do that. And then afterwards, we have one last discussion / lecture at in the heart in the home East Preston Community Center right there.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, on Brooks Road.
That's right. 24 Brooks Road. That's exactly where it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's a great landing spot for bringing it all back together.
You know, it's I just the first time I was there, it was from my grandmother's 75th birthday, and I just I've always loved that place because it was home, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Is there anything before we wrap up, because our time is coming to a close, but like I said, I can talk to you all day.
Yeah.
So you might have to come back on the show. And just give us a follow-up and tell us all about how the event was. Is there anything that you would like our audience to know, or any final words, or any inspiration, or what would you like to say to your people?
I'd like us to understand that there's strength in unity.
Yes.
And you know that we should not be afraid of our history. It is what it is. Truth is something that we should never run away from, that we shouldn't doubt, you know, and to stick with that, because it's like oftentimes you can be dissuaded by whatever, by the fear that, you know, of being thought of as weird or crazy or outside of conventional.
Yeah.
And I don't, you know, sometimes you need to be outside of the conventional, and indeed on the world stage we've always been outside of the conventional. We are extraordinary.
Kurtis, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for enlightening us, and hopefully we can get out to kind of capture some of the events.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to the producers and see if we can make that happen, just to kind of even capture some of those moments.
Yeah.
So again, we've been here talking to Mr. Kurtis Brooks, who is a wealth of information. His work is in genealogy. Mm-hmm. He's written a book that you all should get your hands on. Please go check out their website. It is right here on the screen for you. And again, give us your feedback and go see Kurtis. Go to one of those sessions on one of those dates and get out and support the cause, right?
Well,
so if you haven't done so already, please subscribe, hit the link, ding on the bell, right? So that you continue to get the community update information and see great shows like this. I'm Nicole Johnson, your host. We will see you soon.